or blurry. So it's been a while. I took a break over December and the holidays, and I am now trying to figure out what my new streaming schedule is going to be. So it's Monday today, a very uncommon day for me to stream. So there's probably not going to be anyone in the chat room. If you're there, say hi. Basically, what I'm gonna try to do today gonna be, let's say, 45 minutes, something like that. I'm gonna try to add Firebase authentication support to useAuth, which is a React hook I built, open source React hook for adding authentication to your React app in like 5 minutes. One of the most commonly requested features is adding Firebase authentication. It currently supports Auth0 and Netlify identity, and I'm gonna see if the abstraction layer I've built into the library that lets you use different authentication providers, even one that you've built yourself. Let's see if it extends to Firebase and whether we can make that work. It's been a long time since I used Firebase. I've never used Firebase Auth specifically, so we're gonna see how this works. Also, it looks like my face might be delayed compared to my voice. Please let me know in the chat room how the stream is working. I've never streamed on Big Sur before, so I'm hoping that there's no weird issues. So let's begin. We're gonna start at the very beginning with the Firebase authentication docs. I'm gonna make a new branch, git checkout -b, Firebase Auth, and let's see what we can do. So Firebase authentication, most apps need to know, blah, 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 learn how to get started, Firebase UI, Firebase SDK, federated integrity, phone number authentication, custom auth integration, anonymous auth. Okay, so let's click learn how to get started. Where do I start with Firebase? I already have an auth system. We don't. I want to build my authentication system with Firebase. I want to drop in easy solution that's easy to use. That seems like the one we want to use here for now. So easily add sign-in to your web app with Firebase UI. Firebase UI is a library built on top of the Firebase authentication SDK. Why does this say that I'm only up on... Oh, great. So it looks like streaming to Facebook errored out. I'm going to deal with that some other time. One tap sign up and automatic sign in. Add Firebase authentication to your web app. Do they have any examples of where we can see this? Set up what? Sign into Firebase using your Google account. Okay. Signing into Firebase using my Google account. Why is this? Google, why don't you have easier docs to follow? No wonder people are so confused about this. Create a project. No, let's see. Include Firebase, CDN, NPM module, Firebase UI. Initialize the UI, set up sign-in methods. Aha, there we go. Email link authentication. Perfect. OAuth providers. Phone number. This looks like we are at the right place. So let's see. We're gonna start with, how should we start this? First we need to add Firebase UI as a email link. Yeah. Firebase UI is a library, blah, npm add Firebase UI to peers, yarn add Firebase UI as a peer. So we're adding it as a peer dependency, which means that you won't have to install Firebase if you're using useAuth with any other providers. That's the idea, at least. So Firebase UI. And then the next step is going to be copying a couple of things. Let's see. ls. I'm going to go ls in source. Source, we're going to need a new provider. So we're going to copy. Let's see. Actually, I have instructions for how to do this. Create an auth provider. So what is an auth provider? We need something that satisfies this. And I actually have an abstract implementation. Wonderful. So we basically have to take this. God damn it. Come on. Oh, okay. So basically what we got to do is take these instructions for creating an auth provider for useAuth, copy that into a new file, and then fill out all of the functions. And if everything goes right, it should kind of just work. That's what I'm hoping for. So we take that and we create a new file called Firebase UI tests providers. Let's call it Firebase UI.ts. So this is our stub file. Instead of auth0, it's going to be called Firebase UI private. Should we call it client? Firebase UI. What's the client going to be called? Or what's the type for the client going to be? Let's call it client. Auth provider class. Implements cannot find name. Yes. Auth provider class. And we say auth options. There we go. And then I'm going to comment this out for now. Let's call the client an any. We're gonna need provider options. We can say we don't need this yet, and I'm going to comment all of this out. We can deal with that later. The user profile, we're gonna have to find the types for that. For now, I'm gonna call it an any. User roles is auth user, comes from source types. So that's gonna be something that we get. We're gonna have to return a string. Let's return an empty string for now, just so that TypeScript stops yelling at us. Auth user is going to return, or well, the user roles are going to return stuff, and then promise boolean, we're going to return false for now. Check session is going to be, it's gonna get an any, or it's going to return an any user because we have that in the user ID as well. Or this should be auth user. Or no, let's call it an any for now. User any auth result is going to be a string, I guess. And we're going, wow, what? And we're gonna return user as an empty object and auth result as a string, just so that this should now make it so that types are not yelling at us. Oh, okay. What did I do wrong? So we need to do it like this, auth user, and the auth result needs to be, let's see, check session, come on. We need auth0 decoded hash. Okay, auth0 decoded hash. This seems like a leaky abstraction right now. No, will that make it happen? No, it will not. Okay, we're gonna deal with that later. So any check session is complaining. Now we gotta go back to, oh, we're also gonna need to copy in the home directory. We're gonna copy, where is it? auth0.js to firebase ui.js, and we open firebase ui.js. Actually, let's change it. Move Firebase UI to Firebase UI.js. This is a hack that makes it easier to import stuff. That's the idea. Firebase UI, or actually, wait, ls move Firebase UI to Firebase-UI.js. The idea here is that these files make it easier to import different providers without packaging them all together and forcing you to install everything. I should probably write a blog about that because it was quite painful to figure out. Firebase UI, we take Firebase UI from this/Firebase UI, and we return Firebase UI like that. Then we go into package JSON and we add source provider slash Firebase UI.ts to our list of sources. This is so that it gets compiled into dist. And now git status git add dot git commit -a -m. We say stubbed Firebase UI implementation. Yeah. So we've got the stub implementation done. Now we're gonna go into the Firebase documentation and start moving things around to try to implement this and make it actually work. We'll see where we get. And then when we have the basic implementation kind of done, we're going to copy an example project and try to implement it there. We'll see how it goes. Easily add sign-in. Okay. Before you will begin, add Firebase authentication to your web application. So I need to create an example web application. Create a project. Let's call it useAuth demo. So we have useAuth demo. I accept the Firebase terms. Continue. Enable Google Analytics. I don't really care about Google Analytics. Yeah, I don't care about Google Analytics for this. So we're creating the useAuth demo project. This will help us. So one of my philosophies when building open source, I don't know if it's okay to call it a philosophy. One of my ideas of building open source is to make it as easy as possible for people to try the code and to get started. So like with Auth0, I have a user setup that is purely for testing with public keys and everything shared so that people can quickly test this and try it out. I want to do the same thing with Firebase. Continue, my project is ready. Get started by adding Firebase to your app, blah, blah, blah. So authentication, we are going to get started with authentication. Authenticate and manage users from a variety of providers. We're going to enable email password. Let's enable passwordless authentication with email link requires additional configuration steps. Okay, let's go with email password for starters. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it to that for now. Cool. So we've added the things, authorized domains, localhost, use auth demo web.app. Cool. So we've done that part. And now we installed Firebase UI. Now we gotta the following modules. Aha. Yarn add ---- peer. We have to install Firebase as well, not just Firebase UI. So we're adding that. Come on. Then we go into our Firebase UI.ts and we're gonna start doing some imports. So we import Firebase from Firebase and Firebase UI. Then how do we initialize it? Firebase UI, initialize the Firebase UI widget using Firebase. Okay. So we're gonna say here, this dot client equals new Firebase UI. Wait, does this not have? Okay, let's try this. Import asterisk as Firebase UI from Firebase. Is it Firebase UI? Yeah, I guess it is from Firebase UI. So we imported that. It doesn't have what? Package JSON. Oh, right. How do I install peers? Yarn install peers. I need to install my peers because I am only run install peers after install command. Okay. How have I done this in the past? yarn install peers -f. It needs to be forced because there's a bug in that library that I'm using for installing peer dependencies. So we're waiting for everything to install, I think. And then, so we go back into Firebase UI. This is now imported, and we can say client new, this dot client new. We can say, we can do it like this. We're going to import. Wait, what does Firebase UI export actually? Can we say instead of asterisk as Firebase UI, let's import auth as Firebase Auth from Firebase UI. So we say new Firebase auth.auth UI, and then Firebase.auth. That's weird. Import asterisk as Firebase from Firebase. Property auth does not exist on Firebase.auth. Hey Adrian, how are you doing? How was your break? Or how were the holidays? Why does Firebase.auth not exist? What does this shit export? Firebase error auth, Firebase auth interface user, Firebase.auth. What? I am very confused. How do I do this? Function auth. Aha. Function auth comes from. How do I use Firebase with imports? Come on. Where is the export? God damn. Okay, let's see. Nice. Oh, cool. What kind of course or book are you writing, Adrian? Let's see. Firebase UI. So require Firebase, but how do I import Firebase? Do they have anything that lets me switch this to ES6? What if we do it like this? Import Firebase from blah. Does that work? Oh, that works. Interesting. Okay. So we have Firebase auth.auth UI creates a new client. Firebase/auth. Thank you, Lionel. Let's try that. So this is the auth UI, and then we have import Firebase auth from Firebase/auth. Then we can say UI Firebase auth.auth. No, that doesn't work. Meh. Okay. I'm gonna go back to what I had before because it was kind of working, even though I'm not sure why. Okay, so we have Firebase auth UI.auth UI and gets Firebase.auth, and that should instantiate the client. So when we have the client, or when we have the UI, or yeah, let's call it like this, the private.ui, this.ui. So this.ui, open the authentication section, enable email and password. We did that. Add the email provider ID to the list of Firebase UI sign-in options. So when we say UI.start, where does this run? So add default params. So we are initting the client. We don't need this part. So this .ui, where do we run UI.start? That's confusing. I guess we want to call that on here. When you call login, where is it? Authorize, open login dialog. We say this.ui.start Firebase Ui Auth container, and then we render sign in options. We're gonna say firebase.auth.email auth provider.provider ID. Oh, options are an array. So what is the provider ID? Is that something I'm supposed to replace? No, that's just a string. Optional can be configured to require the user to enter display name. Defaults to true. Email link authentication. When rendering the we can deal with that later. OAuth providers, we can also deal with that later. Phone number. When you enable phone number sign in, we don't need that right now. To kick off the Firebase UI sign-in flow, so we do have to do that here when we're configuring it. So we're configuring it and we're going to get params. So for params, let's pass in the params from our initialization. And when we're adding default params, where is it? Where are we adding default params? Get default. Add default makes configuration easier by guessing default options. So we are going to start with sign-in options, having Firebase Auth email provider as the sensible default. So that's the sensible default. And then when we are authorizing you, we're gonna say, oh wait, that's sign in. To kick off the Firebase UI sign-in flow, initialize the Firebase UI instance by passing the underlying auth instance. So we have that UI, and then what? Initialize the Firebase UI widget, define the HTML element where the Firebase UI sign-in widget will be rendered. Your app may use that space for branding controls and other customizations. Okay. Specify the Firebase UI configuration. So what? This makes no sense. So we are calling UI.start for that stuff. Is it just me, or are these docs very confusing? Wow. This is I'm finding this very confusing. Enhance UI. I am very curious. Nice. I would be very curious to see that, Adrian, because basic UI skills are much needed in the developer world. Yeah. So I think UI.start needs to happen here when we're authorizing it. Yeah, Google it, right? So sign in options provider. Google sign in, email link authentication. Aha. I think I know what I need to do. So I'm going to here. Let's copy this for now. So we're gonna copy this thing for now, put it here, and then, yeah, Adrian, if you wanna, you can try DMing me on Twitter. My DMs are open there. YouTube doesn't like it when people try to share links and stuff. So I'm gonna try this, and I need to then render the Firebase UI container somewhere. So I'm going to, what do I need to do here? I'm going to commit this and try something. Git status, git commit -a -m. Let's say try to initialize Firebase UI, and we're going to go into package.json. I'm gonna change this to 2.1.0 -0, and I'm going to publish yarn build. So I'm gonna build, then I'm gonna publish, and that's because my development flow for useAuth is terrible. I have to keep publishing it because I keep running into weird issues with having multiple versions of React on the page, and then everything breaks. Let's see. Okay, create React element, or rather, compilation is running. While that's running, we're gonna try to make a new example. So cp -rf, we're gonna take the useAuth Gatsby auth 0 version, and we're gonna copy it to useAuth Gatsby, useAuth Gatsby Firebase UI. So we have Firebase UI, or that's copying. It might take a while because I'm copying all of Node modules as well. And let's see if this manages to compile. No, it does not. What did I fuck up? Is not assignable to the same property in base auth provider class. What is wrong? The thing that is wrong is check session. What if we don't have check session? Does that make it happy? Nope. Incorrectly implements the interface. So that's a nice thing about TypeScript. I was able to write a type definition that enforces that anyone who builds future versions of authentication providers has to do it right, which is pretty cool, I think. Except in this case where, you know, it's really annoying. We need to return check session, needs to return auth 0 decoded hash. Come on, auth 0 decoded hash, and this needs to be auth 0 decoded hash looks like an object. All right, so we go here, we do this, and then because this needs to be a auth 0 user profile, this type needs to be fixed. Come on, import user what nickname picture. God damn it. So these types are way too strict. Cool. But because I'm building this right now, I can just change it. So we get the auth user, and here we're going to say that this needs to return an auth user, which I think should be correct. And then the auth user is either an auth user profile or a Netlify identity widget or an empty user. So that should work now. This should be happy. Let's try yarn build again. How are you liking Firebase in React Native, Adrian? Also, hi Chinmay Atra Walker. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. That's a tough one. Okay, we've copied this thing. We can now go into Firebase UI, cd Firebase UI. I'm going to rmrf node modules just to make sure that I have everything nice and clean. That might take a while. Mm-hmm. What are you up to, Chinmay? Building anything fun lately? Okay, so I'm gonna wait for this to... No, actually, I can run yarn while it's waiting. So yarn build, we're waiting for this to run, and then we're gonna go and install it in the target repository. And when that happens, we can test to see if we successfully trigger the Firebase UI. Yeah, interesting. What kind of business CRMs have you seen, Adrian? And I think you're right. People always want those. Yeah, everyone wants to make boring APIs. Although I'm working with, at my day job, we have an Express backend and it's pretty intense. No CRM though. We should really get a CRM. Okay, so we're waiting for everything to install. This might take a bit because my computer is busy with streaming. Okay, and it's still compiling again because the computer is busy with streaming. While we're doing that, I can add Firebase and Firebase UI. Nice. Oh wow, Adrian, I'm. How come it was still built in C? That's pretty. That's quite intense. I know a guy who built an entire forum system, like those old school forums, all in C by hand, and it was pretty cool. Also very fast. Okay, so did we manage to compile this yet? Why does it take so long to compile useAuth? It's not that complicated. Come on, microbundle, you got this. I need to get like a HDMI capture card for my camera because I think the camera is adding a lot of stress to my computer. The problem is that I then need a new camera because this camera doesn't have a clean HDMI out. And if you're not into streaming, you have no idea what I just said, which is I'm kind of jealous. You don't want to know those details. Come on. Let's see. What is my CPU up to? What is taking so long? Okay, so it's currently using 300% CPU to compile a 20 kilobyte library, 10 kilobyte library. And what? Whoa, that's cool. JavaScript ran out of memory trying to compile my library. I'm gonna take that as that's pretty cool. Let's try again. Yarn built. Blackmagic has a camera. I didn't know Blackmagic had a camera. Okay, come on. Or do I need to update microbundle? Is microbundle, does it have a new version? Microbundle. Aha. So they're up to 0.13.0 and I'm at 0 and I'm at, what am I at? Package JSON. Come on. Microbundle. What version am I on? No, I'm on a 13.0. So this is weird. I don't know what to do. Does anyone have an idea what to do when it looks like compiling your library? Let me change this. So does anyone have an idea of what to do when it looks like your library is compiling, but the compiler never exits, so you're not sure if it's finished compiling or what happened? Because it looks like it outputs files. There's new files for Firebase, but I'm not sure what those files look like or what's in them. Also, my entire computer is getting very, very slow here. Check the node version. Let's see, node version. Node minus version. V12. Is that still the latest stable node? So we have V12. And if I look at, come on, open. If we look at useAuth random coding, useAuth, dist, Firebase UI.js, I think that's all the code, to be honest. That looks like everything, right? We're creating the things. We have UI start. That's it. So it looks like it should be working. Node.js, what is the latest? Oh, V14 is supposed to be the latest. Okay, so I'm going to kill the bundler because I think it managed to finish and then got stuck. I don't want to upgrade my node version while I'm streaming. So I'm going to say git add dot, git commit -m test build Firebase UI support, and we're going to npm publish as version 210 -0. That's I like to use minus something as my it basically says that this is a beta version, alpha version, something like that, not to be used. 783 400 783. Let's see that putted, and we're gonna say yarn add Firebase. We're gonna say yarn add use auth at 2100, and then we're gonna see what happens when we try to use it. An unexpected error occurred. Use auth not found. Oh, right, because it's React use auth. The React use auth. I'm gonna open a new VS Code, and then this, come on. This VS Code is then going to, let's see, workshops, websites, random coding, use auth, examples, use auth, create React app, Gatsby, create, where is it? Gatsby Firebase UI. So we have that. We go into, where do we need to go? We need to, yeah, sure, whatever. I need to open the Gatsby browser, and here we're going to change this to Firebase UI from Firebase UI. We ran that Firebase UI. We don't need any params just yet because we're purely using default params. Firebase UI, and then we go into where? Let's see, the index page. So the index page has a login button, and we're also going to need to, we can delete this part because I don't need it anymore. This is just a test page or an example page. Come on. index page, and we said we needed to render a div that has this default ID. Where is it? Firebase Auth container. So we rendered div with the ID Firebase Auth container, right? Let's see, where is this? Firebase Auth container with the UI config, div ID, blah. Okay, so now we run yarn start and we'll see what happens. Come on, computer. That's starting. Building development bundle. Let's see. Almost there. I just want to try and see if we successfully start the Firebase UI. Yeah, one of those M1 chips. Although, you know what's weird? Can't resolve React use auth Firebase UI. That's unfortunate. Also, you know what it never told me to do? Where did we configure which Firebase app this was? Or like foreign key, like public keys and stuff like that. That part seems weird. I think there's something we haven't done. There's no config file. It's like, I feel like the baseline Firebase is not defined correctly. Rebuilding development bundle. Yes. Can't resolve React use auth Firebase UI. Why not? Node modules, React use auth dist. Oh, I know why. Dist/Firebase UI. So let's fix that. Come on. Here, React use auth /dist/Firebase UI. And now node, no, yarn start. And let's see what we get. So still waiting for this to run. Come on, computer. Oh, and we're almost coming up to the 45 minutes. I just want to see this first. Like, at least get it running. See that it errors out when we try to initialize the UI. Okay, so localhost 8000. Looks like you're using the development build of Firebase.js. When deploying Firebase apps to production, it is advisable to only import the individual SDK components you intend to use. Okay, so uncaught Firebase error. No Firebase app default has been created. We need to initialize the app. Cool. So we're gonna do that next time. So we came to the error point. I clearly have no idea how to use Firebase, which is great because I love using these streams to learn stuff. And Adrian, the bird, is doing great. He's currently downstairs yelling at my girlfriend. I don't know if you can hear him in the background because this microphone is supposed to filter all of that out. Well, the microphone plus everything that it's connected to. So thanks everyone for watching. I'll have a little write-up about what we did today published tomorrow on my newsletter and on my blog. So sign up if you haven't yet. And we will continue probably next Monday. I'm gonna try the Monday schedule for the next couple of weeks, see how that goes, and then we'll go from there. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good night. Now I gotta go for a run because my girlfriend's making me watch The Bachelor tonight. And if anyone has any tips on how to get out of watching The Bachelor, please let me know. Bye.